Today from r/LetsNotMeet. That's not my friend in the woods. I grew up in the wooded country in Illinois, on a short dead-end street 10 plus miles from a town. And there were 7 houses in the area spread out on 2.5-acre wooded lots or larger each. There were no large wild animals. There aren't any bears or similarly large animals in the region. And people didn't meander there or show up lost. Actually, lost folks or large animals wandering around never happened in the 20 years I lived there. So please keep that in mind. When I was a young girl in my early teens, I had a good guy friend a few years older than me who lived next door, Terry. Terry was allowed to go out with his friends much later than I was, and he would sometimes tromp over my yard after getting home late and throw rocks from a gravel area outside at my window to chat. My bed was right next to the window. I opened the window and we'd whisper stories, and generally talk for a bit. My second story window faced our backyard, and his house was to the side. I could see his house from my window over the shrub trees and walking path to his driveway. I'd often know if he was out. The light was on over the side door entrance, or already home, light was off. One time during the summer when my window was open, I heard a car in his driveway, dropping him off. I was probably 14 years old, and it was around midnight. I heard Terry get out of his car and was talking to his friends. Soon his friends pulled away. I softly called out as loud as I could without waking my parents, asking Terry to stop by and chat. He didn't respond, as he probably didn't hear me. Then I came up with the not-so-brilliant idea to sneak outside and scare him. I'd spent many years in the woods, and learning how to blend in and be silent. As kids, we'd often sneak around and scare each other. So I silently sneaked down from the second floor and out my back garage door, which led to our backyard below my window, which led to Terry's house off the side through the gravel area, then through the well-worn path through the woods about 25 feet long. My parents had put a gravel pit around the back of the house, probably because nothing grew due to the shade of the oak trees. There were 14-inch oak rounds set out as an uneven stepping path in the gravel, and if you stepped off the rounds, the crunch of gravel rocks would give you away. I picked my way expertly and silently across the log rounds facing Terry's house. My eyes got accustomed to the dark and I didn't see him. Also at that time, I heard the door of his house close and the light going off, signaling he went in, likely to bed. I waited a bit as I thought I saw something move in the woods between our houses, but not on the path we always used. If you didn't use the path, there were wild rose and raspberry plants that had thorns and were painful to walk through if you weren't careful. So I thought it was odd he'd be in the woods, but maybe he wanted to scare me like I was plotting to do to him. But I saw something human-sized and dark moving through the woods slow and pausing every once in a while like me. It was coming closer, and I definitely saw it, but it was strange in that it wasn't walking directly to my window to talk. Therefore I hunched down and waited in silence, wondering if I could still startle him. I still thought it was Terry, and he saw me sneak out and was trying to scare me. I watched a dark outline of a human figure moving, but then I would lose sight of it in the foliage. It seemed to be stalking slowly, and listening, checking every few feet while hiding. So I whispered after losing patience one last time for Terry, but he didn't answer. I got bored of hiding and crouching, so I went quietly, tippy-toed back to my garage door, and went back inside, silently locking up as I went. I snuck back upstairs to my room, above the area where I was standing crouching. My window was open, and I definitely heard something walking around the yard. I whispered again for Terry out my window, but got no answer. Then I heard something fall, and grunt moan pretty loudly in the window. It wasn't enough to wake my parents, but definitely loud enough I didn't mistake it, and it sent a shock of fear through me. If you aren't familiar with a window well, it's a semicircle hole connected to the house, dug out about 3 or 4 feet deep and reinforced with metal. It allows a basement window to be put below ground level, and the hole lets some natural light in. There is no way Terry would have fallen in our window well. We had been playing hide and seek and many other outdoor games for years, since we were young around the whole neighborhood. We knew everyone's window wells and house footprints, plus paths in the woods, like the back of our hands. The grunt sounded humanish and not like an animal. It also pulled itself out quietly without a lot of thrashing. That's when I realized this wasn't a fun game, and something was out there, and it wasn't Terry. I tried to look outside my window as best I could, but there was a screen on my windows to keep the bugs out, so I couldn't lean my head out of the window to see next to the wall of our house directly below me. I then heard the crunch of rocks as whatever it was stepping in the noisy gravel. Again, Terry would know where the log rounds were and would not step in the gravel. He knew my parents were pretty strict, and he was as good as being quiet as I was. Whatever it was stopped, and I held my breath. I pretty much sat there with my face pressed against the screen 2 stories up for probably a half hour. It seemed like an hour, but I'm sure I didn't have patience back then to wait that long. I never heard it, him, her leave, but I grew tired and eventually fell asleep on my bed that was next to the window. There are a few things I'm certain of. It wasn't Terry. I asked him later, and he said he went to bed that night when he got home. He also would have had no reason to lie. I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of our neighbors, and I can't think of any reason a person would be there. We had a few neighbors, and only 2 other houses out of 7 had kids. Again, these 7 houses were spread out in 2.5 acres per home. There weren't any big animals in the area. As wooded as the whole area was, we only had some deer, but they were hunted and didn't come close to homes. Plus our dog scared them away. So stranger in the woods. Let's not meet.